Hey everybody, welcome to the Branch 458 podcast. I'm Casey Ritchie, and today we have Eric Robinson with us. He's been on a previous episode,
Hello.
we're here today to talk mainly about delivering to the door, and I'll let Eric jump into that here in a second. But at first, I wanted to talk about people coming into your station and soliciting for you to contribute money to TSP. First of all, there should be nobody coming into your unit soliciting for anything other than CFC. And that's where towards the end of the year they come in and see if anyone wants to donate to an organization that you there's a long list of them and you pick one and you can contribute some of your paycheck to uh, organization. I'm losing the word right now, but
Oh, they're
uh,
like different charities.
yeah, a charity organization.
I have one. It comes out each check for it's research for SMA, spinal muscular atrophy.
Yeah.
It's a really rare genetic disease, and I actually know someone that their kid has this. But anyway, there's things for different environmental causes, medical research,
Yeah, there's military ones you can donate
young
to,
veterans.
but that's the only thing that you will have anyone come into your station to solicit money from you for. If you have someone coming in your office wanting to sell or have you make an appointment to meet with them later and outside of work for TSP, it's more than likely a scam. Um, I'm not a financial advisor. I can't tell you what to do with your money. All I can do is suggest that if you have done that, I would go into light blue and probably cancel that allotment. Just go to e-access in your not e-access, it's postal ease
Yeah.
in light blue, and then go to your allotments, and I would find that one and make it zero until you can call the financial institution, you can call the bank, call whatever number you have to reach out to whoever you set that up with, and just see if you can access those funds. That's probably going to be the quickest way to find out if it is a fraudulent thing or not, if it's a scam. If anyone's coming into your unit, they should not be unless it's for CFC. Of course, uniform vendors are going to be there, but that's not really what I'm talking about. If there's anyone in your unit, ask to see their ID. Their IDs that they carry look very similar to postal IDs, so look at it closely. If you do see them, notify it to management as soon as possible so they can be trespassed from the property. But the last thing that we want is for anyone to contribute to something that they think is going to help them in the future, and they're contributing to it for 30 years. You get ready to retire, and you find out that your money's been going to someone's private account, and you have no way of accessing it. Just be careful with your money. If it's not the TSP that's through the Postal Service or a federal institution, I would be very careful with that.
Let me tell you this, Casey. About a month ago, I got a text message and it said it was some dude's name. I blocked it and reported it as spam, so I don't have it in my phone anymore. I was looking. Um, and he described himself as the area federal benefits coordinator. And so it kind of sounded like something that would be, a position in the post office. Um, and he was wanting to reach out. He'd got my name and number, and he was wanting to make an appointment to sit down and review my benefits with me, I think is what it said. Well, there was another carrier at my station at 39th Street that about a week or two ago brought this up and mentioned that for the last 2 years he's had an allotment going to this company, and he'd even forgotten exactly what it was for.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? And he was like, well, I'm like, was it insurance? Was it life insurance? Was it extra retirement stuff? And he couldn't even remember what it was for. He just told me that 2 years ago, this dude talked to him on the phone, and I guess they met in person, and they got him all set up through an allotment for some extra benefits. And he was thinking this whole time it was something through the post office, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
So yeah, be real careful with that. If you get a text or anything like that, yeah, do what I do, block it. Reported as spam. I know at our station, Jerry and me and Shannon, our station manager, gave a stand up talk, kind of warning everybody about this since it's kind of been happening a little bit more lately.
Yeah, and they know their stuff. They're pretty educated on all the terms and things that we use. Like they know TSP, CSRS, they know FERS, they know all the lingo that we use. And I don't know if they used to be federal employees or they just know or they've done their research, but they're pretty smart about it. But like I said, nobody should be going into your unit soliciting for anything other than CFC. That's the only thing. So they're even fooling management to allow them to come onto the floor and speak to the employees. So they're pretty sneaky about it. They're pretty educated, but big red flag if anyone is coming into your unit to talk about it.
Yeah, if you guys have questions about benefits or want to look into signing up, for additional insurance coverage, call down here at the Union Hall. Chris Prado, our MBA benefits director, he can give you information on any of those things. We have hospital insurance in case you get put in the hospital, you get a paycheck, sent to your home while you're out of work. There's disability coverage. There's a large variety of different life insurance, term, 20-year, term to 60, term to 65, whole life. um, CCAs. We have a retirement savings plan that'll roll into your TSP when you make regular. So yeah, don't let someone from outside of the postal service or somebody that text messages you give you a solution to these things. If you have any questions, do one of two things: call the hall and they'll get you with Chris, or two, send Casey an email. What's the podcast email address again?
The podcast is 458podcast at gmail.com.
Yeah, shoot that to Casey. Tell him if there's a topic that you want covered maybe in a little bit of detail during in the coming episodes. If somebody wants to know about the FEGLI, the Federal Employee Group Life Insurance, we could have an episode talking about that.
Yeah.
If you guys want to have an episode on TSP, the difference between the funds, how to make the changes. I was hired 10 years ago and I don't remember my password. Anything like that, shoot him an email, and I'm sure Casey can throw together an episode, and I can help him. Chris Prado could come on and talk about it. Eric View, whoever. So yeah, reach out if you want to know more about that stuff and want to listen to it.
Yeah, for sure. I'm always looking for new topics for people to come on and discuss certain things. So looking forward to that, hearing from you guys. It's 458podcast at gmail.com. All right, so let's jump into the main topic of this episode, and that's delivering things to the door and providing that service. So I'll let Eric speak about that for a little bit.
All right. Recently, the topic of delivering parcels and certifieds to the customer's door that lives in an apartment complex has been on my mind. And I'll say here in a minute kind of what brought it to my attention or made me start thinking about it more. But a couple months ago at Stewards Training up here at the Union Hall, they handed out a copy of the post or an article that was in the Postal Record um, in March of 2012. It was by our director of education at that time, Jamie Lum. And the name of the title of the article was "You Gotta Knock on the Door." And I'm not going to read the whole article, but what he goes into was that back in 2012, our parcel delivery business was expanding. More and more people were ordering products online and having them delivered to the door, and the post office was gaining that business. And what he talks about in here is that some carriers may feel pressured to save time on their route by leaving these. Yeah, right.
No way.
Yeah, I wonder who's pressuring them. It must be the union. Some carriers may feel pressured, either from their own mind or maybe even directly from a supervisor, to save time by leaving parcels on the doorstep or simply leaving notices in mailboxes for customers to pick them up at the apartment manager's office without first delivering or attempting delivery at the customer's door. And in some locations, station management's encouraging this, or even at a minimum, they're turning a blind eye to it, all in the, idea of saving, time, making the numbers. And really, this is a dereliction of duty, and that's what he kind of refers to it as, in the article. I want to read something out of the M41. Now, the M41, which a copy of this should be at every carrier's case. This is our handbook. This is what tells us how to do our job for every aspect of our day as a city letter carrier. Also, the M39. There'll definitely be a copy of that in your station. That's management's handbook. It tells them everything on how to do their job, from route inspections to street supervision to, how they, manage in the office. And in M39, section 321.4, it states in part, if a parcel does not fit completely within the mail receptacle or parcel locker, determine if someone is available at the address by ringing the doorbell or knocking on the door. If no one is available to receive the parcel, follow the procedures in 322.311 and 322.312. Well, of the M39, section 322.12 contains the instructions for completing a PS Form 3849, delivery notice, reminder, receipt. So that's the left notice clip that we're familiar with. And, parcels shouldn't be left in an unprotected location. So if you're at an apartment complex and you have 500 people that live there, it may not be the best idea to leave a parcel just, at their doorstep, especially if it's a location that may be prone to theft or has had problems in the past with people, stealing their parcels. But we have a responsibility to go to the door and attempt this delivery and see if they're home. And then if they're not home, some apartment complexes allow you to leave the parcel at their office where you can put a notice in the customer's mailbox. If that's not available and there's no parcel lockers and the customer's not home, you could fill out the 3849 so the customer can pick it up at the post office. Casey, do you know how much certifieds nowadays cost if they got the return receipt, the green card on the back?
I have no idea.
The other day, I had one. I believe it was either $9.80 or like $9.82. They went up in price. So, customer is paying almost $10 to have a certified sent to a customer. And you're on a walking route and you're going door to door and you come across a certified in your DPS. What do?
Well, you got to attempt delivery.
Right there. You're in front of their house. You walk up, hit the doorbell, knock on the door. They either come to the door and sign for it, or you fill out the 3849, leave it in their mailbox, and they can pick it up at the post office the next day, or they can fill out the back and have us bring it back to them at a date of their choosing. So those customers we're providing the service to. If a customer on a walk-in split has a parcel, unless they're in a high crime neighborhood, we're leaving those at their door typically behind a bush, behind a flower pot, or handing it to them when they come to the door. So why in the world, if another customer happens to live in an apartment complex, are we not providing them the same level of service when our handbooks and manuals tell us very clearly how to perform these duties of delivering the parcels and delivering the certifieds? And recently at one of our stations, and I told you I was going to mention what brought this to my mind. We recently had a station where management got up, gave a stand-up talk, and told all the carriers that they're not to take certifieds or parcels to the door for customers that live in apartment complexes, and they're not to deliver these items at large business areas where there's multiple businesses, but they have like a cluster box, out back or something, like a mall, a strip mall would be an example of that. That if the parcel locker's full, you fill out the 3849, shove it in their mailbox, and go about your business. Now, this is ripping off our customers.
Oh, yeah.
Well, FedEx delivers them to the door. Amazon delivers them to the door. UPS delivers them to the door. Why the heck wouldn't we?
Yeah. We're not us, but I would say that the Postal Service would be stealing their money because we're not providing the service that they paid for. Is a good way to look at it.
Yeah, if word gets out that if you live in an apartment complex, you're not going to be able to get a certified, you're not going to be able to get a parcel delivered to your door. What do you think that's going to do for our business revenue in regards to certifieds and parcels? Is that going to make it grow?
No. And just to throw this in here, just to think of the history of the certifieds, right? They're paying for this accountable piece of mail to be given hand to hand inside the Postal Service and it be accountable every step of the way. So it's already we've already diminished part of that service by it being in the DPS because we no longer sign for that anymore. It just goes through machines and now it's in your DPS tray. So there's no accountability for that item. And then management wants us to just leave notice on it without even attempting it. So I'd hate to think of what they want us to do like 10 years from now. Just throw it in their yard like a newspaper. Like, you know
I
what I
mean,
mean?
that's what some of them want to regulate us down to. It's paper boys. You know,
Yeah.
I'm not a paper boy. I'm a city letter carrier for the United States Postal. No. The United States Postal Service. That word service means something. You
Yeah.
know, um, we're in contract negotiations right now, and the Postal Service. This has been going on almost 500 days that we're in negotiations, and the Postal Service apparently doesn't want to give us a fair contract, or else we'd already have an agreement.
Right.
And they're probably screaming bloody murder like they do every contract time. We're broke. We're broke. Well, guys, get Papa to join on the phone. I got the solution. We need to be growing our certified business and getting the word out that if we will deliver the stuff like we promised. We want to increase revenue. Let's do our job the way it is. Let's take
Yeah.
advantage of these $10 a pop, letters that we're delivering. And so, I'm not trying to get on to anybody. I'm a city carrier just like everybody else. I'm not your boss. I'm not your supervisor. I'm your coworker. I'm an equal of yours. But when I heard that this was announced at a station, it just made my blood boil.
Yeah.
If this goes on at your station, where either management is encouraging you to not deliver certifieds and parcels to the customer's door at apartment complexes, or, God forbid, if there's another stand up talk somewhere here in the city, instructing you not to do this, forbidding you from doing it. Fill out a Form 13 asking for steward time. Let your steward know. Hopefully, you can just have a quick conversation with the supervisor, point out in their handbook where it tells us to do this properly, and then they'll rescind the instruction. If they don't, your steward would file a grievance. If for some reason your steward doesn't want to file that grievance, then you need to call the union hall and make Ken Mayfield aware of the problem that's going on there, and I promise you it'll get fixed. Um, Sometimes as city letter carriers, we feel pressured to cut corners. And the reason we feel pressured to cut corners is in the spirit of saving time. Oh, I got to make 8. Oh, I got to make the truck. Well, I got these extra certifieds. I have so many parcels today. And the problem, the different ways that people will cut corners violate safety rules. Well, I'm going to hop all these houses out to save time, and I'm not going to curb my wheel or set my parking brake or maybe even turn the vehicle off.
Yeah.
And, I'm not speaking from this in judgment. When I was a CCA, I did some of the things I just mentioned. I didn't know any better, and I was being pressured at different stations to go faster. Well, I can only walk so fast. And if they want me to go faster, the only way to achieve that is to cut corners. Cutting corners is going to give you stress because if you potentially have an overburdened route, let's say your route, if you did your job right, is maybe 8 hours and 50 minutes. And if you're cutting corners because you're pressured and being bullied into doing this, and you're getting it done in 8 every day, number one, you're telling the Postal Service my route's an 8-hour route when maybe
Yeah.
it's not. Two, you're opening yourself up to the risk of discipline because if they come out there to see you on the street and the vehicle's running and you're not in it and you're taking a parcel to the door, Casey, are they going to walk up and pat you on the shoulder and thank you for all the money you're saving the service?
Absolutely not. And I'm glad you brought that up, like the route adjustment thing. Well, you didn't bring up route adjustments, but 8-hour routes. You're setting an expectation that your route is a certain amount of time if you continuously do it that way, and you're providing a diminished service to all these people by cutting corners. So if and when, I shouldn't say if, but when you get disciplined for it, because trust me, if management wants to discipline you for something, they're going to do it, whether they've been allowing you to do it forever or not. They're going to come out there and go, we never told you to deliver those, to put those 3849s out there, leave notice. We never did that. That's not part of your handbooks and manuals. Your handbooks and manuals tell you to deliver it to the door, attempt delivery. and they're going to play dumb and they're going to issue you discipline
Yeah,
for it.
they'll weaponize the handbooks and manuals that they fail to enforce.
Yeah, they're your friend when they want to be your friend, and when they want to be your enemy, they're going to be your enemy. So it the only thing I can think of, and maybe it's just because we came out of TREAP and we were doing adjustments forever, and now they're doing these Chapter 2 adjustments for, hot and heavy. They're out doing traditional route count inspections. Uh, I can't help but wonder, why are they giving these stupid instructions to cut corners? It To me, I think it's because they want to save time. They want to show these routes shorter than they actually are. And if you have an office that has a ton of apartment complexes in it, what's the fastest way to cut time from that office? Not go to the door when we're required to.
Yeah.
And management is going to get a pat on the back for saving all that money. But then 10 years down the road, or not even that far down the road, let's say a year down the road, when you have a route that you cannot complete because it's actually 8.5 hours or 9 hours long, you can't complete it in time, then you're going to be the one that they're running the gauntlet through every single day. You're going to be the one that, well, you showed that your route was 8 hours back when we did adjustments, and they're gonna hold it over your head. And so that's why I think it's important, not only because of, you know, providing that service that they are paying for to the customer, but because it's going to bite you in the butt later down the road. And it's not us being a pain in the butt. It's not us trying to, always argue with management or be that strong-headed, union guy that's arguing with management all the time. It's we're doing the right thing for the customers.
I in preparation for coming on here with you today, Casey, um, at home last night, once everybody went to bed, I was kind of refreshing a little bit from this article that I referenced earlier. I was reading some of these things out of the M39 and the M41, and I grabbed my phone and I just punched into Google USPS not delivering certifieds and parcels to apartments. And then I hit search. First thing that popped up was a Reddit article from a year ago. A customer of ours had went on the USPS Reddit thread and was basically crying out for help, saying that they were having a problem at their apartment complex. They could not get packages delivered to their door, and that this specific customer was at home, took the day off work, was waiting on 3 different certifieds to be delivered to him. And it had something to do, I think he was like trying to buy like a piece of property. And later in the afternoon, he just had a hunch and he went down to his mailbox. And sure enough, there was a 3849, the left notice slip in there saying that they attempted to deliver and he wasn't home. And so he was talking on this thread asking, what can he do? Who can he call? He tried calling the post office immediately, and all it did was ring and ring and ring, he stated, and nobody picked up. I'm sure all of y'all have experienced that before. I live in Piedmont, and it'll take an act of Congress to get them to answer the phone when I call them with the question. But and so this customer was just saying how that this was really messing his stuff up because he needed that delivered like that day. And then he couldn't get a hold of anybody to get them to attempt redelivery before they closed. So, I just want to encourage everyone, um, do the job the right way we're supposed to. It'll take care of our customers. It'll take care of our company. The union wants the Postal Service to thrive. Steve Riggs, when he does his CCA class, one thing he always tells them is the NALC cares about 2 things: letter carriers and the survival of the Postal Service. And I completely agree with them. I want the Postal Service to be rocking and rolling and flush with money. And that way, one, they could take care of us. But two, that way we can purchase the things that our company needs to take care of us in the future, to further expand our parcel delivery service. And just that way we can all have a job, 20 years from now.
Yeah.
And if you don't know how to do it the right way, if you're afraid, of repercussions from management because now all of a sudden you might be going over on your route, find someone in your station, a senior carrier that you trust, or your union steward, and just tell them, be like, hey, I listened to the podcast. They were talking about this stuff. What do you suggest? Like, how could I, do this? They'll talk to you about how to fill out a 3996 when you're going to need overtime, because that's really what it's going to boil down to. You're going to have that conversation with management. Let them know that, hey, today I glanced over my DPS and there's a bunch of green. Went over there and took a peek at it, and it's my apartments. And I'm going to need extra time today for that so I can take them to the door. Um, you'll be helping your customers, and you're going to make overtime because this takes extra time. Right now, there's overtime's kind of scarce around the city, yet we have stations full of carriers that are just handing that money back to the postal service when we should be doing this. Um, there's a podcast that I would like to recommend. The name of it is Classes of Mail. Classes of Mail, and it's by a gentleman named Alan Gigax. And he just does short episodes, like 15 to 30 minutes, and he covers different topics. And so I've started listening to him recently. One episode was about UBBM mail, and I actually learned some stuff from it. Another episode was about how to deal with, the 3996 and how to fill it out properly, and what to do when management maybe gives you some resistance, or if they get harassing about it. And so reach out to your coworkers if you need help. Call the union hall, if you want more information about, how to deal with unpleasant interactions with management when you start doing all these things. And definitely check that out. So I just kind of wanted to cover that topic, and if somebody's not doing it, let's start doing it. Join me. I do this stuff all the time, and I have a very nice route. I have an easy, stress-free day. So that's kind of all that, Casey.
Yeah, and you know, we both know that management is going to push you to try and cut these corners. That's the whole reason there's this conflict. You look in your DPS, like Eric was talking about. Let's say you got an apartment complex that once a month they get just a ton of certifieds. They're sending out their bills or their left notice slip or whatever they send out monthly. It's usually coming from their headquarters. And once a month, you got 50, 60, 70 certifieds in your DPS. And the first thing you do is panic because you're like, oh no, I'm not going to meet management's numbers today, because they don't know you have that many certifieds in your DPS, and their numbers aren't based off of that. Well, first of all, I don't care about their numbers. Their numbers aren't going to set a standard for me. But, I want to do a good job. I want to provide a service to the customer. So what do I do? And all I can tell you is what I did last time that happened to me is I informed management. I said, hey, I'm at this apartment complex and they have a ton of certifieds. What would you like me to do? And I give that advice a lot because we don't get paid to make decisions. That's what management does. We get paid to deliver mail and do a great job at delivering mail. They get paid to make decisions and manage the office. So I have all these certifieds. What would you like me to do with it? If you notice it in the office, for sure, fill out a 96. I've got a billion certifieds today. I need an hour to fill out all these 3849s and attempt them at the door. What would you like me to do? And the last time I did it, we had enough CCAs. He actually told me to take out all of the certifieds and give it to a CCA, and they did that for their pivot for the day. So took it off of me, and I was actually kind of excited about that because I didn't have to go to attempt them at the door, but that CCA did.
Yeah, made your day better.
That's like an hour and a half for somebody to go do that service. So it's not our decision to make; it's management's decision to make, and that's the advice that I would give. So just talking about 3996s, and Eric, you jump in if you want, if you've experienced any of this, but just to talk about 3996s for a minute. A 3996 is a receipt for us. It doesn't really benefit management at all to have a 3996. And honestly, it's probably a pain in the butt for them to deal with. They don't want anyone turning in 96s. So what's our obligation in the morning or anytime if we know that we're going to be going over 8 hours in a day? So Eric talked about the M41 earlier. The M41 is our handbook. Every case should have one. It's under your ledge on the big case in that black book. If you don't have one in that black book, ask management to get you one. They're required to have one at every case. But reporting requirements, and I won't read all of it, so it's not going to be boring. So hang in there with me. But reporting requirements, 131.41, it is your responsibility to verbally inform management when you are of the opinion that you will be unable to case all mail distributed to your route, perform other required duties, and leave on schedule, or when you will be unable to complete delivery of all mail. So that didn't even mention a 3996. It's your responsibility to verbally inform management. So that's the first step. You come in, you see a mountain of parcels. You've got 18 trays of DPS. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but you get what I'm saying. You walk in and you see, I'm definitely not making 8 hours today. Your first responsibility is to verbally tell management, I'm not going to make 8 hours today. And more than likely, they're going to have you turn in a 3996, but you as the carrier should want to turn in the 3996. That is your receipt that you informed management you were going over. Without that, there is no proof that you ever told management you were going over.
Yeah, it covers your butt. If you're in a situation to where when you tell them you need extra assistance or need to use overtime to get your stuff done, and if you're in a situation where you get pushback or where they don't agree with you, surprise, surprise, or DOIS, numbers say something different. Yeah, like Casey said, that's your receipt, that's your proof. Um, you know,
Yeah.
yeah, you got to
So
have it.
so just going to the next section. So that was 131.41. Just to read 131.42, inform management of this well in advance of the scheduled leaving time and not later than immediately following the final receipt of mail. Management will instruct you what to do. So, like what I was saying earlier, that is management's job to instruct you what to do when you inform them that you're not going to make 8 hours. And this might clear up a lot of stuff that you guys been hearing, but you didn't know exactly where it was in handbooks and manuals. You might hear your station management or the clerks yell parcels up or mails up, or they might have it in your SOP that you have to tell them within a certain amount of time of mail being up that you have to tell them you're going to go over. Well, that's where this comes from. It says that you have to immediately notify them following the final receipt of mail. So that's where that comes from. And then there's something else in here that I'd like to explain that management gets confused a lot. It says inform management of this well in advance of your scheduled leave time. What's your scheduled leave time?
806.
So you know what yours is.
Yeah,
That's your base leave time, right?
yeah.
It never changes from day to day. It's always 8:06.
It's listed in your outlook.
Yeah. And it should be on the side of your case. It's usually on your coffin on the side of the case. Your scheduled leave time is not the numbers that they tell you in the morning when they're coming around and they're like, "Hey, your leave time today is 7:02," and you clocked in at 7. Those are not your scheduled leave times. Your scheduled leave time never changes. It is on the side of your case and it is fixed. It's a base leave time. That's what that means. And whenever you go through a route adjustment, that's how they figure out your base leave time. So that's what that means by scheduled leave time. Those numbers that they tell you in the morning do not mean a thing. I mean, sure, if you want to listen to it and kind of gauge your day off of those numbers, you go ahead. But those are predictions from DOIS, which is a computer program that can't see certifieds, can't see how heavy your parcels are, can't see if it's raining outside, can't see if there's ice outside. It's a computer program. And they're going around telling you those numbers because a lot of people aren't educated on what your scheduled leave time is. Your scheduled leave time does not change. It's on the side of your case.
Yeah, when management comes in the morning and they fire up Skynet and and they fire up DOIS and it gives them these fake numbers, it's not taking into account a lot of variables that can happen. And you know what? Sometimes at my station, that number is sometimes accurate. A lot of times it's not. And, you know,
Yeah, I mean, DOIS is supposed to be a tool to help them.
yeah, they're
It's
allowed to have an estimate. That's
yeah,
perfectly fine.
yeah, it's
The
supposed to.
39.96 is us giving them our estimate because we're the one that does this route every day.
Yeah, yeah, it's supposed to be something to assist them, but they've gotten so, and I hate to say it, but they've gotten so lazy, and they go to all these trainings all the time, and even them get brainwashed into thinking that these are the actual numbers, and they're not. We have a scheduled leave time, and it's based off of a route adjustment that was performed on our route. And like you said, yours is 8:06. That never changes. So if you're going to go past that scheduled leave time, you need informed management. So that's a lot to say. Turn in a 39.96 in the morning if you're going to go over 8 hours or exceed your leave time, and your leave time is fixed. It does not change.
Sorry, I got to slip this in. It's bursting out of me. You remember the where it's written where it talks about that DOIS shall not be the sole determinant for determining a carrier's leave and
Yeah.
return time?
Yeah, it's written in like three different step four settlements.
Yeah, multiple times this has come down and handed to the entire organization stating that DOIS, PET, any of these electronic estimation tools cannot be the sole determinant of your leave or return time. So that's when you get to have a hopefully pleasant conversation with your management. I'm at 39th Street. I have a lot of pleasant conversations. I've worked at other stations and they're not so pleasant sometimes when it comes to talking about overtime. And you just have to be prepared to have that discussion, and you have to burn it into your mind that although maybe occasionally their estimate may be correct, sometimes, on your route, it may be correct a lot of times. But if it's not, that's when you have to know the rules, know the handbooks and manuals, and understand that that tool cannot be the sole thing that determines how much time you're going to spend on the street today.
Yeah, it says in those step four settlements, and I'll explain what that is here in a second. But it explains that it cannot override the M39 and the reporting requirements. So even in management's handbook, the M39, it tells them how to assign overtime, how to set carriers' leave schedules, and what that's all talking about. It's in chapter 2 of the M39. And what's chapter 2 of the M39?
Route inspections.
Route inspections. So that is not something they do on a day-to-day basis. It's something they do during route adjustments and inspections, and it's set for your route. And that's something that I don't know why. Maybe they don't train enough on that, but that's something that they don't understand. And they truly believe that that leave time changes every day, depending on mail volume. And it does not. That is not true. So there's that little tidbit. So just to explain what step four settlements are, um, as we file grievances, every now and then there's a really, really good one that we file that maybe there's not a national what do you agreement on what that means. There's not a national interpretation on what that means. So either party, the Postal Service or the union, can set a grievance aside once it gets, so it starts at informal A, the lowest level, then formal A, then it goes to step B, and then after that it goes to arbitration. Typically, either at step B or arbitration, they'll set a grievance aside, and they'll send a notice to the opposite party stating, "Hey, we want this to be considered as an interpretive issue." So when they do that, the other party will review it. I think typically it's the union that does it. They set a grievance aside. We just did it with all the HIP training stuff. They just sent out notice that that's an interpretive issue now. So um, the Postal Service will review it, and they'll say, something like, "We have reviewed this and we've determined that it has not been interpreted by the national level." So it'll go to a hearing, or the parties will come together and they'll decide on what that interpretation is. And that's how they determine what step four settlements are. So usually they start out, like I have one here, and we label them with M numbers. Memorandum numbers is what the M stands for. So this one is M00326. and they're in the format of a letter because it's the postal service usually sending something to the union, stating this is what we agreed to, this is what we talked about, please sign it and return that this is what we've talked about. So this one is talking about unauthorized overtime. And this was set aside somewhere for an interpretive issue. And it says, "Dear Miss Huerta, on July 26, 1972, we met with you to discuss the above captioned grievance at the fourth step of the contractual grievance procedure. A review of the materials submitted at the fourth step level indicates that this grievance did not inform management of their that the grievant, did not inform management of their inability to complete their route in 8 hours. Furthermore, and this is the part I want to highlight, it was demonstrated that we were ordered it was demonstrated that they were ordered by management to complete the route, although there was an express authorization to complete the delivery of the mail on an overtime basis. Permission would be inherent in the authorization to continue delivery after notification that the grievant were unable to complete the route. So what it's saying is, I'm out on my route and I realize that I'm going to go over 8 hours. So maybe I didn't see the certifieds in my DPS in the morning, and I get to that apartment complex and then I see the 1,000 certifieds in my DPS. So I call management. I'm like, hey, management, I'm going to go over on my route today. What would you like me to do? And then they tell me over the phone, oh, just keep on delivering. Don't worry about it. What this is saying is they have given me that inherent authorization to go into overtime. It's not on a 96. It's not something that's in paper where they said you're approved, check mark. They gave you that inherent authorization by approving you to continue delivering on the route. Uh, so whenever you get back to the station, what I suggest you do is fill out a 3996, and in that comment section, in section J, I would write, I called supervisor, put their name. They informed me to continue delivery on this route. And then you fill out the rest of it just like you usually would. And I would turn that in. I would get a copy of it. And again, that's a receipt for you. That's not for management, because they're going to say, no, I never got that phone call. And the topic of this is unauthorized overtime. Um, I just wanted to bring up something, that we deal with that, you might not think about. Um, if you go into overtime and you don't notify management, they have an obligation to, not, I shouldn't say it, what they don't have an obligation, but they're probably going to give you unauthorized overtime. And for them to give you unauthorized overtime, they have to do several things. They have to write how many hours, how many clicks you went into overtime unauthorized, and they have to write that down on a 1017B. 1017B is an unauthorized overtime record. It's a continuous log. It looks just like your accountable record. In the morning when you sign out for your accountables, it's got several lines on it, but it's a continuous log of just you and how many times you went into unauthorized overtime. So if they're going to charge you with it, they must record it on this 1017B. So out of the F21 handbook, and that's the handbook for time and attendance, it says unauthorized work time. The supervisor must insert a written entry on the PS Form 1017B unauthorized overtime record. So it doesn't say they should, they may. It says that they must. So if you get told that you have unauthorized overtime for any reason, you should notify your steward, and that's something that they can investigate to see if your name is on that form on that date. And then we're going to want to know, well, did you notify management? And that's why it's important to turn in a 3996, because we can request that as stewards. And well, they did inform you. It says that they called at this time and spoke to this supervisor, and they were told to continue delivery of mail. So that's an inherent authorization to continue to deliver into overtime.
Yeah, we have to give management the ability to manage the mail. You know, sometimes in a grievance, management will cite Article 3 and be like, well, we have the right to manage. Well, Article 3 is in there for a reason. They do have the right to manage. That is their job. I'm just a city letter carrier. I'm not paid to figure out if, who should get what overtime and, how many hours have been spent for the week on overtime. Maybe they're trying to watch their, monthly budget for the station, and maybe they want to have a CCA pick up a couple extra hours so that, they don't pay out too much overtime. We're a business. That's perfectly fine for them to make that decision. So long as they're not harassing us and so long as they're not, doing this in a, untoward manner.
Yeah.
And where this really starts is by us giving them the opportunity to make the decision. Don't take it upon yourself to just deliver those 70 certifieds to all of a sudden tomorrow start walking all your parcels to the door at apartments when you've never done it before and you go an hour and a half over. I don't want you coming up here to the union hall and be like, Eric, they're being mean to me now and I'm in trouble for unauthorized overtime. Well, just take a step back. You got to let them know, and sometimes it may not take you very much time to do some of these extra steps. But if you've heard what me and Casey were talking about and you decide, you know what, I do want to start implementing that. I do want to give a little bit better service. I want to, make sure I'm doing it the right way. First of all, that's great. Second of all, if you're going to go over 8 hours and management doesn't know about it, you got to give them the opportunity to do their job. Not every supervisor or manager is bad. I really like the management at my station. We have a good relationship. 39th Street, best station in the city. We're full of a bunch of people that work hard every day and just a bunch of good people. And, we have a good relationship with management there. But if you're at a station where maybe you're not as fortunate, you don't have a great relationship with the supervisors there, maybe they're just for whatever reason kind of, really breathing down your all's neck about every little thing. Make sure you do what Casey was talking about. Let them know if you're not going to make eight. Give them the opportunity to manage those things. We don't get paid to think that much. We just get paid to put paper in metal boxes, and I love doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's very important. I talked a lot about in the office, the final receipt of your mail, what it says whenever you must inform management of that, turn in a 3996. But it's important on the street too. And like the example I gave, whenever you come up to your apartment and you see all those certifieds, you have to notify management as soon as you're under the belief that you're going to go over eight. So that is at any point during your 8 hour day. You might have a train stop you for 20 plus minutes. That's out of your control. That's something that you wouldn't know in the morning. You might get a flat tire. Your LLV might stop working. I
Yeah,
know
and hey, brothers, sisters that are listening, do not let anyone lie to you and tell you that you just have to suck that up, that you just have to make that up, that you have to get your 8 hour day today, or you have to make the truck, so you just got to, go faster or cut corners. I talked earlier about not cutting corners. Notify them of what happened. Let them know, hey, there's an unusual circumstance. And hopefully they'll either approve you overtime or they'll send you out some help. But if you don't let them know, then you're just, really taking it in a bad direction and nobody wants that.
yeah. Yeah, and just I guess the final thing I'll say about 3996 is, and then we'll do closing thoughts, final arguments.
Final thoughts, closing arguments, go.
uh, in the M39. So if you get back to the unit, you did not fill out a 3996 in the morning, or you did fill one out in the morning, but something unexpectedly happened in the PM. Um, and this applies to the morning too. If you request a 3996, they are required to give it to you. So just to read something, and it's pretty short, in the M39, section 122.33, the employee, upon request, will be provided a PS Form 3996 after the supervisor has been verbally informed as to the reason for the request. The employee shall not be denied the form, and upon request, a duplicate of the completed form will be provided to the employee. So again, the 3996 is not for management. It is for you. So I think that's why that provision is in the M39. It's to protect you. So why would it be required for them to give it to you?
Because it's our document.
Why would it be required that they give you a copy of it once they've adjudicated it?
So you got proof.
It's our receipt. It's important because without it, you have no proof. And I talked a little bit about 271Gs. 3996s help you tremendously when you're trying to figure out if you qualify for a 271G. So if you keep those, just throw them in your locker. You can throw them away after a year or whatever, after you know that they're completely irrelevant. But I would keep those and just put them in order, throw them in your locker, throw them in your case drawer, whatever you got to do. But uh, that's the last thing I'll say. This was pretty fun. You got anything you want to, any closing arguments?
Yeah. Talk to Danny Gonzalez at 39th Street. Shout out Danny Gonzalez. He's my mentor. Anyway, when I was a CCA, he took me under his wing and really showed me a lot, and I appreciate him. Thanks, Danny. Anyway, sometimes when I'm talking to him, we'll do a final thoughts, closing arguments, go, and then we'll say like a minute or two or something. Anyway, I had to explain that because I was sitting here thinking like, man, that sounds weird. You know what? Lick Piff. My final thought wants to be about Lick Piff. When I went to Boston, they were talking about Lick Piff, and I bumped up my contribution. And there was a time where I didn't understand what Lick Piff was. It's letter carrier political fund. I didn't understand what its purpose is, what it does. Casey, we need to do a podcast about Lick Piff sometime. You need to get Bew on here, and talk about that. I don't know if you guys have or not, but
Yeah. Yeah, we did one episode with Matt Tanner and
yeah, that's right.
we talked about it. So we can definitely talk about it again.
Yeah.
That's something that we can talk about forever because it's always changing. There's always new legislation. There's always new things that we can reach out to our congressmen and senators about to support us. And that's something that I highly suggest and encourage anyone to do for sure.
Yeah, and guys, I started my contribution initially $4 a paycheck. Um, I did the math. I was like, hey, that's almost like right at about $100 a year. I can afford that, and you won't miss it from your check. And it's almost kind of like insurance for our job. That money is used to basically try to get politicians on our side. LICPIF funds are used to work with Republican and Democrat members of Congress. Stephanie Bice, I think Markwayne Mullen has gotten funds from us in the past. So I don't want anyone to think that it's just one sided because I know typically unions, Democrats are sometimes more friendly towards unions. That's not the case. There are quite a few Republican politicians that have supported us and supported our legislation, and the LICPIF dollars go towards that. Our competitors, FedEx, UPS, Amazon, they have billions of dollars combined that they spend on lobbying. And I think Matt Tanner said something like, "What did we have last year? Like 12 million?"
I don't remember.
Maybe it wasn't
That
that
might
much.
be right.
Yeah, I think it was like around 12 million. And nationwide, 12% of letter carriers donate to LICPIF. Oklahoma, it's around 6%. So I don't know. I'd encourage everybody listening. Think about chipping in $3, $4, $5 a check. Join me and Casey with pitching that in every paycheck, and hopefully those funds will help get us better results from Congress when we need legislation passed. So that's my final thought, buddy. Cool.
All right. Well, thanks guys for listening. If you got any comments, any suggestions, it's 458podcast@gmail.com, or you can comment on Facebook whenever we share this. But we appreciate you. Have a safe one out there and listen next time.
See you later.